So thanks again for joining the webinar. Very excited with the panel that we have here, and excited to do the first in a number of series of webinars with CDW. Just in terms of the housekeeping rules, please feel free to use the Q&A tool. You should see that in the bottom of the screen. We will be answering those questions live at the end. And also, we're actually going to be having some live poll questions. So we're going to make it a little interactive today as well. So please feel free to select your responses. So you'll see things like, options 1, 2, 3, and 4, or, very likely, unsure. And then our panel will actually kind of discuss some of those responses as well. Lastly, we are actually recording this session as well, and it is available on demand. So please feel free to kind of share this with your colleagues as well. So to kick things off, I'm your host today. So I actually head up our SI Alliance motion for Anomalo. And just a brief intro about Anomalo. So at Anomalo, we help organizations trust their data by using AI to automatically detect data quality issues like missing, late, or anomalous data across thousands of tables and billions of rows. We have a machine learning approach that requires no rules and really kind of helps you scale effortlessly. So we're giving teams visibility into all of their data issues before they impact the business as well. So really scalable for enterprise clients. So to kick things off with our panel, I'm very excited to have Rex Washburn join us from CDW. He's the Chief Architect and Head of Engineering for CDW's data practice team and the creator of their minimum viable data governance framework. Rex, just pass it over to you to kind of introduce yourself.
Thank you. As you mentioned, Rex Washburn. I'm the Chief Architect and Head of Engineering for the CDW data practice. I've spent most of my career in the data space. My role is actually pretty wonderful. I help customers go from ideation to execution on really sort of merging that business need for data down to the technical aspects of it and the actual execution. So I get to work with our customers, our services teams, and a lot of CDW folks to help customers succeed.
Thanks, Rex. Very excited for the conversation today. And then next we have Lee Diamante from CDW, Solutions Architect, really providing hands-on technical consultation. I know we're working on a number of client opportunities. So Lee, please introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Lee Diamante. I'm, as you mentioned, the Solution Architect here at CDW in the data and analytics practice. I work with our clients on a day-to-day basis in translating their needs into solutions, products, services that we can provide. And as of late, a large part of that has been wrangling data into shape for use by AI and helping them get that trustworthy data.
Thanks, Lee. And then next, joined by Jonathan Karen, our Head of Partner Innovation, and actually building a lot of our AI and data quality products. Over to you, Jonathan.
Hey, thanks, Daniel. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining. Yeah, I'm Jonathan Karen. I lead what we call Partner Innovation, which is a fancy way of saying I am the sort of engineering and product leader who spends a lot of time with our partners like CDW, as well as software vendors and cloud providers, all up and down the data stack. And my job is really to make sure that Anomalo is on the cutting edge of actual software that we're putting out there and building in our platform, as well as that we work really, really tightly and in lovely orchestration with all of the other tools in your data stack. So that when you're looking at something like implementing a new governance program, the software doesn't get in your way.
Thanks, Jonathan. And then lastly, but not least, Ben Lumbert, my partner in crime, actually, on the partner side. So Senior Partner Solutions Architect, really helping our partner ecosystem, over 20 years plus experience and working with CDW to build these exciting kind of solutions and offerings. Over to you, Ben.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, excited to be here. As you mentioned, been in the data space for a while, but a more recent focus on data quality and really just trying to help our customers really achieve their needs and requirements out in the field, trying to bring all the wonderful things that Jonathan is building in the background there to light and making sure that they're actually delivering, what the customers need. And of course, partnering with great folks over at CDW to make sure that we can really hone in on what those immediate needs are.
Perfect. All right. Without further ado, let's kick off the panel discussion. So yeah, kind of let's start with the current state of data quality. And I think, Rex, this is probably a good question for you. Um, why are you seeing such a strong push from the C-suite in terms of data quality? I know we're hearing it a lot at conferences, but how does the kind of the garbage in, garbage out problem really impact AI implementation?
I think it's, what we're hearing from the C-suite is they're really not talking about data, and in many ways, they're not even talking about AI. What they're talking about is business outcomes, right? And so what I'm hearing from the C-suite is we've heard that AI can do X. This is the outcome I want, and then there's a big disconnect because there hasn't been a driver to invest in the data platforms or in data quality or governance for so long. Those initial jumps to get that competitive advantage, especially during 2025, hit a lot of roadblocks because they build great solutions. The data was of the quality it had been the last 10 years, and then those solutions just, you know, they don't realize their potential. And quite often it's just a write-off at the end of the year. So without data quality, really AI starts having a lot of challenges, and a lot of trust challenges.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And I think, Lee, you're kind of in the trenches having a lot of these conversations with clients and, like this kind of therapist almost for some of these companies. Where are you really seeing the biggest gap between their kind of AI ambitions, what they're coming to you, and their actual data readiness?
We're seeing we're seeing a lot of those trust issues come from familiarity with the data. They can very easily connect to the data from a myriad of sources. But unlike, say, legacy finance systems where Janet in finance knows everything about that data and can see when it's not passing the sniff test, they're pulling data from sources they may not be familiar with, and the quality, addressing that quality is a challenge for them getting the AI trustworthy data so they can get trustworthy results. So we're seeing tools like Anomalo with the machine learning that is helping them uncover issues that they weren't aware of because they're not familiar with the data. Is helping, but when they get bad results from their AI, we're seeing it's because lack of familiarity, lack of knowing what is right.
Yeah, no, completely agree. In terms of kind of the poll question, let's kick off to our first poll question. That should come up on the screen there. So, yeah, just if people can take their time to answer that. How confident are you in the trustworthiness of the data feeding your AI systems? We'll just give it a minute for people to answer that.
Yeah, and while you're voting, I feel like last year we were all running around quoting Gartner stats about data quality. I'm really happy to see more voices out there doing research. I was just looking back, and it turns out that CDW, in fact, has done a bunch of research on this, and we came across a couple of interesting stats. 62% of IT leaders agree that their organization has great ideas for AI, but they're really struggling to execute because of fragmented data environments and unclear governance. So if you're in that bucket, you're not alone. And even more interesting, 98% of organizations said they have initiated AI projects, but only 34% achieved what they called full deployment, usually citing things like insufficient data readiness and fragmented environments as the main blockers. And I'll see if we can post links to those research reports in the chat here for you all.
Oh, perfect. Great. We should be ready for the results. Okay, some interesting results there. Doesn't seem many people are very confident. Lee, anything kind of surprising for you there, or aligned with what you're seeing?
No, it aligns with what we're seeing. Most people are not very confident of the data they're getting. So no, this matches. This matches.
Perfect. Uh, Moving on now. Actually, I understand kind of CDW has been working on this minimum viable data governance framework to really help address organizations. I know CDW has these data strategist experts, that are kind of experts in all these verticals to really help their clients So this feels like a really good topic for you, Rex, in terms of, if you could just share a little bit more about how CDW is helping clients, get their house in order. As you can see, lots of people are not very confident in their in their data quality. So yeah, over to you, Rex.
Yeah. Well, we created MVDG really because of the gaps we were seeing. And it wasn't just the gaps around data quality, it was the gaps in fully embracing the power of platforms and the technology the technology ecosystem that exists around the leading platforms out there. And it really boils down to those things that can be implemented on day zero. Foundational data quality, data security, basic data privacy, engagement of stewards, and the organic building of stewards. And I think that the magic happens is when we can take those foundations and make them move faster. So every time we engage with a customer, what we're looking at is we're going in with the assumption of what we saw in the poll is probably reality for that customer, and it's reality for so many customers up into the Fortune 100, right? So when we help people modernize, it's build those foundations into the very DNA of their platform. And I mean, that's really where something like Anomalo comes in, because we're able to deploy quality so fast. It's the thing that really kills governance is speed and time and just this. It's always this cumbersome process, and we always have to get it perfect before we consider it started, right? But if we embrace these foundational minimum viable sort of concepts and start building in the foundations right off the bat, don't make it cumbersome. Let's not try to code an entire data quality framework ourselves. Just get it running, because the executives, they have a business outcome. They don't care about how did we do data quality? Is it the coolest way that we could have coded it? What they want is high quality data happening fast so that they can start getting insights and be competitive, because the pace of change does not allow for a 3 to 4 or 5 month cycle just to get basic governance started, right? So that's how we're working with customers, is really just saying, hey, listen, this is the foundation. We do data governance as part of how we work. And honestly, I love that, because it's really a non-optional way we partner. I mean, it's just our DNA. We're going to build data governance just because that's the way we touch keyboards.
No, I love that, and it's like you said, kind of helping people get their house in order, and building that framework. It does sound a bit of a scary kind of place to start, especially when people are coming from zero. Lee, I was wondering if maybe you could touch on some of CDW's kind of lightweight, or how would you help customers get started, maybe with some of the workshops, the data quality assessments that you're doing, how that relates, because if I was a customer coming, I'd be kind of worried, like, okay, this feels like a mountain that I need to climb. So I know you've been doing this again in the field with clients. I don't know if you could touch on that.
I can, yes. So we have data quality assessments focused on AI or focused on other business intelligence reporting environments, whatever. But each of them, they're fixed fee, short, quick hit projects, assessments, usually delivered over a 2 week period. But they're designed so we can go from the ocean of possible to the puddle of doable. We pick on 2 or 3 real opportunities at the client. We get the technical folk and the stakeholders engaged, and we address quality and stewardship as well as culture at our client to get them a quick win, something that can be implemented so that they can get started. But even more importantly, the lessons learned through that assessment can be applied to the broader environment and the remaining use cases. So it's something they can take and grow. But our clients need speed, and these assessments are designed to give them a win very quickly that they can point to and maintain that momentum.
Love that, and I'm guessing we'll hopefully touch on that at the end a little bit more on some of those assessments, because they sound really really valuable to help customers see value, like you said, from the kind of the start. Moving on now, in terms of just kind of scaling and automating and kind of monitoring, this feels like a question for you, Jonathan. How does kind of Anomalo AI drive that approach for data quality? And how have you seen that kind of help organizations rapidly improve their data quality without those kind of manual rules?
Yeah, great question. So, and forgive me, I could talk for an hour on this because I love the topic so much, but I'm going to try and keep my comments brief and to the point. You know, the big challenge with manual rules, and this is kind of referencing back to like traditional legacy data quality products where you come in and you say, this is my data in this table. What kind of rules do I want to analyze and enforce on it, right? And you're basically staring at a big blank sheet. This kind of goes back to Rex's whole point about like MVP, like, well, you know, what do I do now, right? And the problem isn't just the work and the effort there. It's that you have to predict every important way your data might break that might impact the business and impact those outcomes. And that's just an awful lot of work, and you're always going to miss something. And when you're sitting there being asked why you missed the one critical thing that has caused a business problem, you don't really have an answer, right? Because it's like, well, we just didn't think of that one. So Anomalo's approach to solve that problem, because our founders, the whole company came out of companies that struggled with that, is to start with, initially we just started with like some pretty traditional machine learning approaches and said, we can use AI to automatically detect all of the like table stakes stuff for you, right? So all of the traditional spectrum of missing data, incomplete data, changes in schemas, all of that stuff that we've been struggling with for decades. Anomalo's platform does most of that out of the box for you by just learning what the data looks like and then automatically tracking it and adapting as the data changes. So when your structured data is petabyte scale and constantly evolving, we take care of all of that table stakes monitoring work so that you don't spend all of your time on stuff that is just like, everyone knows what this should do. It just takes a lot of time and effort to set it up. So it gets a lot of that out of the way for you right away. We find this typically eliminates about 80% of a data team's work around basic quality monitoring and setup. And that means that you just turn the product on, point it at the data, let it sit for a few days while it learns what normal looks like, go on with the rest of your stuff. And when you come back, you have a basic data quality assessment and monitoring and alerting all in place, right? And you don't have to make this a huge effort. You just turn it on and it's very iterative and you can add new data sets and new data products as you need to. The exciting part is that now we can do the same thing with document and unstructured content, right? Which is all the rage now. In the same way, you can turn Anomalo on and you can run an initial assessment of tens of thousands of documents in probably an hour, right? That's about how long it takes to run across that kind of a document corpus. And there's no need to spin up a whole team and invent a process. You just analyze the data, see what you've got, make some decisions about how to move forward, and it's much more agile.
No, lots to take in there, and I think those kind of three implementation scenarios are really interesting. Kind of the modern environment, our approach, kind of eliminating kind of rules there, and now, like you said, the unstructured data. Rex, just in terms of kind of how you've been using Anomalo now, and fitting into those kind of different implementation scenarios mentioned there. What are you seeing as kind of the fixes from an AI first approach, and kind of on the silver and gold tables, for your customers?
I think so. In one use case, I mean, I'll sort of dive into a couple different ways of looking at this, but we help a lot of customers modernize. So, we could be looking at 1,000, 2,000, 4,000 data pipelines for larger enterprises and trying to figure out, when we look at these, if you can think about that 80% savings, imagine 80% savings of removing complexity of just rebuilding those if somebody's doing net greenfield, right? So Anomalo can sort of help us simplify the overall migration, speeding up time to delivery. But more often than not, what we're finding is that when we go in there, the customer's never had data quality to start with, right? So now it's sort of hard to say you're modernizing to build the data platform is going to be your AI platform or support your AI needs if you have no quality. So right there, by bringing Anomalo in and right at the beginning, we're sort of taking a migration and moving away from lift and shift to lift and modernize and then bringing in the tool stack that's actually going to help them move faster. On the flip sides, we also have things like, retail. We're seeing a lot of folks trying to get that 360 customer right.
Mm.
And there is no way to have a 360-degree view of your customer unless your data is of quality. I mean, I just don't see a bad quality data with that. The one thing I never want to see is somebody doing outreach that's customized on bad data. And I can think of a number of times where just like I get that outreach, and even the email that has the wrong email, or it's blank because they never filled it in and they never checked the quality of their data. Now I get dear, brackets first name kind of thing. That's very off-putting. So I see like Anomalo coming in for migrations from the modernization standpoint, and then also from all of these I want to use AI, and I can use AI to be that much better of serving my customers. But I didn't pay attention to my data, so all of that effort sort of, I don't want to say wasted, but I would say it's less than optimal, and the ROI is not going to be there.
No, that makes sense. Before we move on to the next poll question, maybe Ben, Jonathan, I don't know if there's anything you can add on that in terms of just kind of the POCs that we provide, because I know we do provide kind of free POCs with CDW, and just kind of the value and how quickly you see that. If there's any additional comments you wanted to make on that.
Yeah, I mean, I can chime in right quick. So, from what I've seen over the past few months of being here at Anomaly, we want to make sure that folks aren't feeling overwhelmed by this shift, right? By looking to a new, more modern tool that can help them get up to speed. It can seem like a daunting task, especially if you're currently unsure about the quality of your data. So, Anomaly goes a long way to help provide a lot of coverage out of the box, so you can really rest assured that you're building trust early on. And then we provide easy mechanisms, low code, no code, AI assisted checks to help you really iteratively build out and build that coverage with confidence, instead of just kind of doing a whack-a-mole type game that you might have to do with more traditional systems.
And Daniel and Ben, one of the interesting things that you just said there is, if you imagine a customer moving into a modernization scenario, that's a lot. There's a lot of change, there's new skills, there's new everything. And if I want that to be successful, I got to have data quality. By removing that learning curve, that steepness, like you just said, it's going to simplify the whole matter. I mean, that's a huge benefit to the team itself, right? Because they can focus on delivering value instead of building something that is really foundational but maybe got missed, or for whatever reason, it's just not firing, right? It could be an old rules-based set that's just never kept up with modernization. And I think that's one of the beautiful things that Anomalo does, is we can just remove that complexity.
Love that. And that's actually a nice way to move on to our next poll question. What is your kind of biggest challenge in scaling AI responsibly? So hopefully that should come up on the screen. There we go. So yeah, if you would kind of look through those and take the time to answer that.
Yeah, and while we're waiting for the results to come in lieu of the Final Jeopardy theme music here, I thought I might pose a question to the panelists here. We've touched on some of these things up to this point, but haven't drilled specifically into some of the AI-based stuff, right? The changes that we're seeing with this rapid increase of AI initiatives. As we all know, this is really opening up the flow of data for organizations. You have more sources, more variety of data, larger volumes of data. And the more pressure you put on a system, the cracks are going to start to show. So these data quality issues have always been there, but now they're really taking center stage because of the amount of investment that's being made into these AI initiatives. I'm curious if the panelists have any thoughts that they'd like to share on what are some other more broader things that organizations should be considering when they're trying to stay ahead of the inevitable data quality issues that might arise during these initiatives.
I can jump in there. I mean, I think that as we're looking at the overall platform, and trying to drive to the AI initiative. I mean, we're really looking at 2026 as the data platform, as the AI platform, or it's the insight engine, right? So beautiful thing is our AI capabilities are right next to our data, right? And the sort of leading vendors the Anomalo supports. They're out there and they're already, they're providing both data, all the data features, the LLM ops, ML ops, and then that ability to sort of do comprehensive insights. That's great. We're back to the governance gaps, right? We see customers that have functionality in platforms that aren't embracing it because it could be complex to get it all set up and moving forward. So it's the stacking of what are the best of breed tools that are going to allow you to move that data platform and stop treating it like an old jalopy, an old Model T. You spend a lot of money, don't treat it like a Model T, drive it like a sports car, I think that really that's got to be the fundamental mind shift. We can't spend a year building a data platform. We have to embrace the technology and tools that allows us to go from zero to sports car to competing, right? And the platforms are there, but maybe the timeline, it doesn't match what the business needs. And I think that's where Anomalo, AI-assisted tooling in general is actually going to be our future in 2026.
Love the car analogy there.
That's a great point, Rex. I think there's another challenge. I think there is actually a new definition of completeness coming out of this generative AI world, right? I think of some of the big newsworthy snafus that companies have had recently, putting AI in front of customers, where the AI customer service bot is making up policies or telling people they can get free stuff, right? And it's not your traditional completeness data quality problem, but it is a problem in this world of generative where the software is not going to just stop because it lacks data. And this is an application problem, not necessarily a data problem, but the data team has to be part of the solution to this, right? How do you take the top 50 topics that customers are likely to bring to this application, internal or external, and make sure your data covers those topics comprehensively, right? This is a very new type of data quality practice that we're seeing. And we really need very modern tools and very modern approaches to kind of reinvent how we do this stuff so that those kinds of challenges can be met confidently.
Yeah, Jonathan, I think you're spot on. I mean, we have to be able to modernize our platforms in ways that we've never thought of before. Especially when you mention, unstructured data without having a tool that can actually go in there and help us with the quality, the overall cost of just parsing those documents and turning them into actionable data is going to be a problem. Our tooling has to create and this is a governance driver as well. It has to create a funnel, like a marketing funnel or a security honeypot. Let they pull the users into the data, into high quality data, and make them excited about using it.
Great, and should be ready for our poll questions now. Oh, interesting. Lee, apart from letting us know what cars customers are coming to you saying that they want, what's their favorite sports car for their AI projects? Any thoughts on what you've seen here and just kind of what you've been hearing from customers?
So it matches what we've been hearing from customers. Data quality and drift, especially in AI workloads, are huge concerns. The lack of clear governance, I expected that one to be a little higher because organizations have not had governance. If they did, they were paying lip service to it. And this habit of addressing data quality at the consumer, whether that's the business analyst, the AI, or the data scientists, having to clean up the data they got before they can use it, there's a clear need to move that left more toward the persistence layer. That's where the quality should be. But lack of governance stewardship has to be included in there, security, lifecycle management, etc. Usually I was expecting data quality and lack of governance to be more equal, is what I'm trying to say.
Interesting. Anything else from the panel based on the results that we've seen? Anything surprising?
No, I think it's spot on. It's The one thing that that I think we don't address often enough is and Lee mentioned it, right? It might be lip service to governance, is the organizational change that has to happen to really roll out governance. So lack of clear governance and tool fragmentation, I also see that sort of tying into it because without that sort of org management, the outreach to the business and really managing change, which is a gap from the middle market all the way up in the Fortune 50, is a real challenge. And the resourcing, I think limited resourcing is there, but that's where leaning into the ecosystem, tools like Anomalo, and then some aspects that we look at from MVDG as far as like how to really identify and build stewards. And is there the one thing that I think that I would say to everybody that's responded is whenever you see lack of clear governance, tool fragmentation, limited resources, my first question is who is the most senior executive sponsor that stood up and say data quality and data governance is for us? Because that is our first and most actionable item is you need a senior executive to be able to say this is important. And that will make all future data and AI go forward faster.
No, love it. Great reviews on the questions there. And Lee, I'm expecting you to ask what car your customers want next time they come for you for governance and AI strategy. So moving on, let's just dive a little bit deeper. I know into kind of vertical specifics here because very impressed with CDW's kind of list of expertise. I didn't even realize you had, so many experts in the healthcare, life science, financial services, manufacturing area, and literally can help, consult from end to end. Lee, probably for you, because you've been doing a lot of this in motion with clients. Just from a manufacturing perspective, how can bad inventory data lead to kind of millions of cost overrun? Like, how have you seen this in that kind of manufacturing scenario there where, the monitoring of IT, OT convergence help, with those kind of issues?
So when it comes to manufacturing, especially monitoring IT and OT, that converging the IoT data with your operational data, usually the goal is to predict failures, to identify opportunities to improve efficiency, reduce costs by not doing unnecessary work. But because these systems are so fractured and siloed, and they're coming from the data is coming from a myriad of sources. It's in who knows what format. The quality of that data when it gets to the lake house, when it gets to the warehouse, is suspect, and no one's quite sure what it is. So they're not able to leverage all of that data, aggregate all of that data safely, and get those efficiencies. So while the costs may vary by customer and size of customer or size of use case, there is a cost there in that they're not efficiently predicting those failures. They're not efficiently driving, or they're not able to drive inefficiencies out of the manufacturing process. And that's where they're really seeing the hit to costs related to manufacturing and data quality.
Yeah, definitely a big area that I know you can help, and obviously having good data governance and data quality can help in the manufacturing logistics space. Another area that I know, we've been talking to some customers in these verticals. CDW is very strong in and has lots of experts is financial services and retail, really helping them again kind of adopt that modern data quality and AI readiness. Rex, kind of what are some of the real world consequences that you've kind of seen people ignore around the data quality, up front, and kind of any kind of regulatory fines or failed MDM projects? Just, what are you seeing as kind of real world issues that those verticals have been seeing?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that we're seeing is the financial services, they have a lot of compliance pressures. So they already have the risk officers and compliance and such, and they're doing great jobs. But it's like a lot of silos that are stood up. So you have risk and compliance, and as long as those things are being met, it may not percolate down into security and data. And really, what we're seeing within financial services is I'm seeing more and more of open conversation, and it's sort of it's a windmill I'm jousting against. I want to see all CISOs and CDOs and risk officers really coming together because that's where the overlap is key. And MDM is a great example, right? If MDM projects have immense value to an overall data estate, but they also have the highest failure rates traditionally. And that's just a lot of times because of the challenge of getting data together and getting quality data together. I mean, you can just imagine if I'm trying to merge 15, Joes or Johns, and it's common names trying to merge them together to get a single customer record. And if all of a sudden that's incomplete or inconsistent data, that project can go from something that's constrained and known to something that's just blown out because you're solving and putting out fires where there really are none. It's just a data quality issue. And then, it's financial services, so data quality has to be something that we lean into heavily because those gotchas are going to have very real world impact. It's we're talking about people's, banks. We're talking about banking or trading. Any data that's missed, there is no dropping a record because the data quality is not there. Those data quality issues have to be solved immediately. So, we look at multiple layers of data quality when we start dealing with financial services, everything from the pipeline all the way through that multi-layered lake. And then that's where we sort of we bring Anomalo in to handle that automated data quality. And we still might even be engineering other quality because it has to be both. One is none, two is one kind of philosophy when it comes to some of the data quality when we get to regulated industries.
No, that's great, and definitely, I'm hoping that my banks are speaking to CDW for advice and putting those guardrails in place. Just want to remind the audience, we do have a Q&A panel. Please feel free to kind of add questions. We've got some time at the end to go through those. We've got some good questions there, but please feel free to add some additional questions. But moving on in terms of kind of success stories that we at Anomalo have achieved, I know we've got a bunch of customers in the financial service sector, retail as well. Ben, maybe you could share a little bit of, just kind of large internal teams, kind of that have been struggling to complete tasks, complete projects for years, trying to deal with like mission critical data, just kind of how's Anomalo helped in that, kind of, and share maybe some clients there.
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned, we've got plenty of great stories up on our website, and I encourage everyone attending and those watching later at home, go out there. There's some really great stories across industries, but we do have some strong ones in the financial services space. And one of my favorites is Discover. We maybe all at one time or another had a Discover card of our own or know someone who does, and as you can imagine, an organization like that has a massive amount of data that they're dealing with. And as they roll out more digital services and products, that volume just grows. And it can be a real challenge to stay on top of that, especially if you're getting new types of data sets and things like that you haven't seen before. Now they seem to be doing okay, and at automating the more like functional or technical testing, if you will. Is my schema correct? What are my row counts? Are things unique? Which is pretty straightforward in what we consider to be table stakes in the data quality space today. But they were struggling with those really important business validation rules, those more complex things that are hard to really put into place if you're just doing a manual rule approach. So things like design requirements, maybe we have to ensure that every customer account has at least one active record or at least one active digital product. Or they want to look for cross-column relationships. So not just as their distribution changes or drift within one column of information, but what about across columns? Because those are the really hard ones to find if you're just building really pointed rules, right? And building those rules, of course, requires domain knowledge, and those folks with the domain knowledge may not always have the SQL or the Python or whatever skills that are needed to develop those rules. So you kind of get a gap there. And I was shocked when I first heard this, but it makes sense now that I think about it more. They were seeing upwards of 40 hours for a subject matter expert to actually develop, test, and deploy a single check on a single column. And if you expand that out to all of the columns that they have across all the tables in their organization, they actually were estimating that it could have taken upwards of 25 years to get complete coverage. I mean, that's That's not a time you want to wait for, to have the full coverage and be confident in what you're rolling out and make sure that your customers are also trusting what they're receiving from you. And so, we brought in Anomalo to help them really automate coverage while also improving their ability to scale efficiently. So, as we touched on already in this call, Anomalo's unsupervised machine learning can provide you a substantial amount of coverage out of the box. And looking for those more complex issues that are notoriously difficult to detect, so like those cross-column drifts and relationships, or some of the more nuanced things that may exist within your ecosystem. And then Anomal can also open this up to a broader set of users. So from the last poll, we were talking about limited resources being a challenge. Well, if you can open that process up to non-technical users with a more approachable way to define quality rules through low code, no code, or even AI assisted checks, you can imagine that that really helps you start to scale more. And then that's only part of the equation, right? Identifying issues. The other part is we found the issue. How do we fix this issue?
Mm.
And that could take just as much time, if not more, if you're still relying on kind of having to dig in through the data using SQL and other tools to really suss out what the problematic records were and why they came about. But with Anomaly, we provide that automated root cause analysis out of the box. Okay, why does that matter? Well, it matters because it can help inform those data users, those data engineers, with all the information they need to hit the ground running when it comes to resolution. And so after bringing in Anomal, they were able to onboard new data sets within a matter of minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. They've got a new data set brought in. They've got checks enabled on all the columns with a few clicks. They've got that unsupervised machine learning looking for those unknown unknowns, the things that they didn't think to check for. And then we're also, again, giving that automated root cause analysis, delivering the right notifications to the right people at the right time. So you don't have to keep on checking back into a certain dashboard to look for these issues. I'm getting notifications in Slack or Teams or PagerDuty, whatever the case may be. So that one really struck out to me, as far as something where there was a huge resource saving without sacrificing coverage and agility.
I won't ask Rex what type of car they had when they were taking 15 years to, to deliver their data quality strategy, but I'm glad that that went well. So kind of looking ahead, Jonathan, I know you mentioned unstructured data and kind of, being a hot topic and, just a lot of people not realizing what they have in that unstructured data and some of the future risks. So how are you seeing kind of unstructured data emerging as just a major opportunity for discovery and even just for governance? Like I said, it seems to have been neglected for many years.
Yeah, I mean, I think until very recently, the last 4 or 5 years, we didn't have a scalable way to leverage it, right? Your unstructured data was a whole bunch of documents and forms and contracts just sitting in SharePoint or somewhere. So I think we've moved past the phase where companies are trying to figure out how to integrate unstructured data into their applications. I mean, it's not settled art, but every big company has run these pilots, right? They've all sort of said, gosh, how do we take all of this source content and make it usable without hiring an entire team of people to scan and do data entry on it, right? That data entry world is moving away. So there's lots of experimentation on what's working. There's tons of reviews happening. It can be a very slow process, right? Because, we mentioned sort of risk and governance, right? Everyone is deathly afraid of being in the news for the wrong reasons, with good reason. And we don't have 20 years of experience just taking all this raw unstructured data, dropping it into an app and learning where the failures are, right? We don't have good data quality standards for unstructured data. Which is why I'm such a big fan of this whole minimum viable governance sort of practice that Rex is talking about, right? I look back to my days when I was leading engineering teams, and I think it's really important to think about the difference between measures versus judgments when we're doing this kind of stuff. A measure or a metric is something you use to figure out how you're doing as an implementer, as a practitioner. A judgment is what the governance system, the risk system uses to decide if you messed up, right? And this is the classic, you measure what matters, but then the measures become the performance reviews, and we don't want that. We need to separate those really carefully. Which is, I think this gets to what I would really love to see more of with unstructured data, is letting people experiment, but having some guardrails, not approval gates, but processes and tools in place that help people do the right thing and make it easier to do the right thing than to go behind, the compliance and risk and governance's back to get something out the door, because that's what we can't have. And this is really why I love the way we've designed our unstructured product. And it's, this is not just a feature of Anomalo's software, but I think it really shows what's possible here. Because the way our unstructured product works is it has a bunch of opinionated rules built in about how to assess unstructured content. And you can add your own rules in plain English language to say, I want a rule that says I'm only looking for contracts that are about US entities, right? Simple rule. Really hard to go and actually prove in a billion documents which ones are only contracts for US-based entities. So what we've done is created this platform that has a bunch of out-of-the-box things like PII detection, like tone and sentiment analysis, like conflicting information, right? And it's really easy to point that product at a collection of 1,000, 10,000, 50,000 documents that you've got sitting somewhere and just run the assessment and find out what's in there. And, sorting hat those into the things that seem suitable and maybe aren't so suitable. So that's for the team that's actually building the application, working on that data product. The beautiful thing is, as soon as someone uses the product to do that analysis, from the governance perspective, somewhere way off in the distance, a little light shoots up, right? And you're like, oh, there's someone looking at some data over there. What is that data? We don't know what's interesting or important to people, but now we can kind of crowdsource and grassroots build a governance practice where, it's not about the first thing I have to do is go to the governance team and ask for permission to use a certain set of data. I can just look at the data, analyze it, and the governance team, the data stewards, they know what people are looking at right away. And they can be like, oh, that's interesting. That's a whole set of content that we weren't really even thinking about. Let's bring it into governance. Let's go and talk to that team about what they're up to and what they're trying to achieve, right? So it really creates a really great cycle where people are able to just move quickly, look at content, assess it at scale, and it is organically brought into governance as you go. So I hope that kind of addresses, what you were asking, Daniel. That's my vision, right? Is to make it just really easy to do things that build that governance practice without getting in people's way and without having to go through a bunch of applications and formal gates before they're allowed to start moving.
No, I mean, it sounds like a huge opportunity just to kind of even just discover what you have in all of that unstructured data that's just been sat there and hasn't been monetized or hasn't been looked at in years. So sounds like there's a huge amount of kind of opportunity and low-hanging fruit there. Rex, kind of on that kind of note, you mentioned data quality as kind of an internal compromise, the kind of the issues that organizations face there. It could be, do I focus on my structured or unstructured data? What do I even do with my unstructured data? How do you feel organizations could kind of better prepare or prepare for these future risks, like, AI agents, maybe impacting, data or, affecting the stock prices of companies?
Yeah.
We mentioned some of those financial examples.
Yeah, I think that especially as we're moving into an agentic future, we're going to see the need for pervasive governance. And I think one of the things that Jonathan was mentioning is right along the lines of this minimum viable governance. And what we need to see is we can't wait for data governance to be perfect to have data governance. One of the common things I hear is, well, we can't decide what sales is. So while a group of people sits in a room for 6 months arguing on what the definition of sales is, within the business, there are still people building solutions. They're still making decisions. They're still parsing it out. The business doesn't stop for data governance. It works around the data governance. It finds ways around it, especially with unstructured data. And I think one of the things we have to do is lean into using the tools to make it more collaborative, more of, hey, we're going to help you activate this data, and we're going to help you figure out what's good, what's worthwhile to work with, right? So, if you look at unstructured, just being able to have the features that Anomalo brings is really important because I can lower the total cost of doing something like taking all these PDFs and running them through a pipeline with Dockling and parsing them all. If I have high rates of failure, there's compute that's being wasted. There's dollars. Everything we do in the world of AI has a dollar amount attached to it. Every time we engage with bad quality data, we're costing the business money. We're lowering our ability to make change. We're lowering our ability to adapt to the future. All of these systems that we're talking about, like governance as activation, bringing in the AI-assisted tooling, doing that now is basically laying a foundation that we haven't really addressed in our data estate for quite a while, but laying that foundation because the writing's on the wall. AI has told us that data is the lifeblood of the future, right? And if we keep ignoring it, then the next wave of change is just going to catch us unawares because I have unstructured data that I need to look at quality, but as soon as I start looking at that and saying, hey, there's an order number in here, what do I care about with that order number? Now I'm back to relational data. Oops, all that data's been, not looked at. So now my process breaks down. Oh, hey, I want to start looking at voice data. Oh, hold it, I can't join that to anything because it's all bad quality. And we saw it in the poll, fractured tooling. I think that we're seeing a message from the attendees, as well as our customers and as well as our market, that this fractured world is a roadblock to the future. It's our job to fix this right now, because if we don't, I don't know what the next wave of change is. I know we all got sort of surprised by AI and what it could do. The next wave is going to be that much more exciting. And the problems that we have today will just be exponentially compounded if we don't start addressing them. So it's a positive and sort of, I don't mean to sound doomy, but we have the opportunity to use these tools to solve core issues today that set us up for a future that we don't know what it is, but I'd rather be prepared.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a good way to prepare is to get some advice from the experts at CDW there. I see we've got a couple of questions from the audience, so just kind of cover those before we wrap up. But yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely great responses from everyone and conversation here. But the first question that I can see, and I'll kind of open this up to the panel, so please feel free to answer whoever feels most comfortable. And what signals tell you that an organization is truly AI ready from a data quality and governance standpoint? And Lee, this might be kind of good for you because you're kind of in the trenches doing this, or I know Jonathan, you've done this with a lot of customers. But just kind of opening that up. What do you, when an organization comes to you, where are you like, okay, yeah, you've got the guardrails in place as you mentioned. Your cars at least moving from A to B.
I think, honestly, I think no one's truly AI ready. It's too new. We're bringing in too much data. But those customers that are moving to um, governing that data that they're bringing in for AI, rather than just exposing everything to the AI tools, to the models, to the data scientists, those customers that have recognized that not only do we have valuable data assets here that we can use, we have to use it in a governed, secure way. Those customers are AI ready, but they may still need to improve their framework. They may need to improve their data governance program, improve data quality. But it is those customers that have recognized that need, not just to access the data, churn through the data, and spit out some answer, but to access it in a way that complies with corporate and regulatory requirements, et cetera. Maturely, cleanly, securely.
No, great response there. Just maybe a little side note. how do you manage to break the news when customers think that they are AI ready or have good data quality and governance, but maybe don't? How do you kind of break that news to them that actually they need to do more?
Well, one of two ways. One is show them the scorecard from the quality tool from Anomalo, show them where
Mm,
the issues are that they weren't even aware of or hadn't known. The other way is how much time are your consumers, your data scientists, your business analysts, whomever, how much time are they spending cleaning this data up once they
mm,
get it? Because by the time they get it, it should be trustworthy. But much of their job, and to Rex's point, much of their very expensive compute is spent cleaning it up so that they can use it. So if they don't have a dashboard to look at, we look at just how much time are they wasting uh, uh, at the end of the process cleaning it up.
Now, those are great points, actually. Yeah, really good things to look out for is, like you said, the scorecard and how much time are they actually spending trying to clean up that data. Moving on to kind of the next seed question, sorry, that we have here. How do you operationalize governance without slowing down your data and AI teams? Maybe Rex, that might be a good one for you.
So I think the key is that in that question is like the data and AI teams, right? We're not wanting to slow them down. I think the question needs to be flipped, right? How do we roll this out and not slow down the business? And I think the best way to get governance happening, besides finding that executive sponsor, um, that is sort of one of my ways of finding out, how mature is a customer and are they AI ready? Is there an
Mm,
executive sponsor? And is there data culture? Is there a robust data culture where they trust data, where they can get data? And that's really the key, is the data and AI teams need to focus on building a mature modern platform. And I define that as the business can get the data they want when they want it and how they want it, right? It's not we have the coolest tech stack or that we're using every open source Apache project out there. It's what is the business, what can they do, right? And can we get it to them fast? The other one is, do they trust the data? And data governance just really boils down to trust. So I would say, to get that governance started, start looking at your gaps at the platform level and the gaps in the way you roll out data, and where are you breaking trust. And that could be like, hey, listen, we're going to bring an Anomalo right away because it starts solving a lot of quality. I can start increasing my sort of trust level. And your goal as a developer, you're looking for folks to not be in a meeting when you talk about analytics and make that face. And anybody that's been in data, that's gotten requirements, has seen the face of a business user that says, I don't trust what you're telling me because the data is always wrong. And back to what Lee said, they're spending too much time fixing what we give them. If that look isn't there and they're like, yes, you guys got our back, you have data culture will do a feedback loop, because people that care about data, your stewards that use it every day, are like embedded security analysts of the data. They're going to be seeing those issues. They're going to be giving feedback. If I have good quality, that should be solving things like, hey, Daniel, I noticed that you look at this different ways. Let's have a conversation about what's really meaningful, because we're not arguing about 2 + 2 = 4 or 5, right? So I think governance is really about, drop a bunch of people in a small room deciding what can and can't be done, and realize that the business is doing what can be done in every way, and partner with the business and get that trust score up. If you have one metric, build a trust score around your data. You know.
No, that's a great words of advice there, and I think we're all seeing how demanding and fast paced those AI teams are. So yeah, definitely definitely something to look out for. Great questions, and just want to kind of thank the panel. Great panel as well. So thank you, CDW, for joining us and sharing your expertise and real life kind of trials and tribulations there. And thank you again, Ben and Jonathan. So yeah, we're going to kind of finish up now. And just to kind of end the session, we do have obviously CDW's kind of data strategist workshops that are available, as you can see here. There is going to be a recording of this session, and then you can follow up with us as well. So you can email Anomalo if you want to learn more or have a demo. But yeah, CDW is more than happy to kind of talk through those pain points and issues and provide the advice that you need in there and decide which car you want to get into.
Exactly.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.